to live. Love yourself, be kind to others, break free and let your spirit soar. Empower life with Cleopatra will help you awaken the best version of you. Empower life with Cleopatra. Empower life with Cleopatra.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Empower Life with Cleopatra. It's so good to see you all. I think Hilarious Pet already left a message earlier. I read it earlier and I responded to them, and they said something about that the fact that this show is being talked about now is so apt because a lot of men don't usually talk about this sort of issue, and I did thank them for it. So I'm so glad that somebody's already joining. People are already joining them before the show started and already making comments. So welcome to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to the show. It's Empower Life with Cleopatra. I'm your host, Cleopatra Starres, and thank you all for joining, particularly the subscribers and the regulars who always support this show and contribute to the chat. I love you guys and I appreciate you so much. I'd also like to remind us that if you have any stories you want to share, or you want to be my guest on the show, you maybe got a product you want to sell or something you want to talk about, please send an email to empowerlifewithcleopatra@gmail.com. And for those watching this show later, please, I beg of you, watch the show to the end, okay? Because it helps YouTube algorithm to recommend viewers to watch this video. So tonight, guys, we are pulling back on the curtain on a very, very controversial issue, I guess. It's a conversation that doesn't really get talked about enough. Modern men's challenges, from the pressures of the gym culture and body image struggles to the silent battles of mental health and the evolving role of fathers. We are unpacking it all, okay? First of all, let me see who is at the chat before I continue. Who's at the chat? Oh, Cindy, you're already here. Thank you for joining, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining. Right, guys. Okay, let me continue because it's going to be a good one tonight. But like I said, this is not just about statistics, right? Because we're going to talk about statistics tonight. It's not. It's what the society tells us. It's about real experiences. We're talking about real emotions here. We're talking about real solutions. And tonight, I am joined by two incredible guests who will bring a unique insight into these issues. Okay. So first of all, we have Mr. Chidi Umeano. Please tell me if I got this right or wrong. I'm so sorry.
Perfect.
It is. Thank you so much.
You get a kiss on your cheek for that.
Oh, bless your heart. And my earrings even come up for that. So,
exactly. I did that well. Thank you.
Okay. So he is the partnership and engagement manager for the Over 50s Black Men's Forum, O5BM. It's a UK-based non-profit committed to improving the health and well-being of Black men aged 50 and above. A driving force behind impactful collaborations and funding initiatives, Chidi has played a pivotal role in tackling health inequalities and promoting active lifestyles within the community. He has been instrumental in the Sorosoke project, which preserves and shares the stories of the Essex Black diaspora. A passionate advocate for physical activity, he has championed table tennis as an accessible sport for older men, helping to expand O5BM's physical activity centers across the UK. Joining him is Mr. Deji Babalola, a dedicated IT professional and a minister with an unwavering passion for uplifting others, whether through faith, mentorship, or simply just extending a helping hand. Deji has been a source of encouragement for many. His commitment to guiding people through life's challenges makes him the perfect voice for tonight's discussion. So, guys, welcome, gentlemen. Please, guys, in the audience, welcome my guest because it's going to be a fantastic show tonight. And of course, this conversation is not complete without you, the audience. Without you, honestly, it's not. our incredible audience, you guys are so fantastic. And so throughout the show, I want to hear from you. All right. So I need you to drop, I already put some questions in the chat, but I need you to answer these questions again. Yeah? Drop a yes in the comments if you or someone you know has felt pressured to look a certain way because of social media. Drop a yes or no. If no, just drop a no. Secondly, do you feel men feel safe enough to talk about their struggles openly? Do you feel men feel safe enough to talk about it? If yes, okay, put yes. If no, put no. And if no, why not? And thirdly, what's the one thing that we can do to support men to encourage them to talk more about it? What's one thing we can do? Okay, your thoughts matter, and your engagement helps break the silence and drive change. So I'd love to see your responses in the chat, right? So, right, let's get to it. Let's get to it. Mr. Chidi, thank you so much. Let's start with you. Yeah. How much impact do you think social media has on men's body image?
So, thank you very much, Cleopatra, for this amazing platform where you're trying to expose. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah. Yes. So, social media has become a very necessary instrument in terms of platform to express ourselves. And I just come with an example of where somebody told me, everything was looking very good. And she said to me, social media is fake. And I said, what do you mean? She says, but I'm not myself. Every morning I come on social media, it's not me. So social media has a massive pressure on how we want to look. And as we get older, we want to look as we were when we were 18. And that means we would almost do anything, especially if we've had rejections in the past, rejections from the opposite sex, especially. So we trying to do whatever we can. And I'm going to take this even just recently. I was with a meeting with a gentleman, friend of mine, 30 plus years. And he was telling me before he came for this meeting, because we're going to be on a media platform, he had to dye his hair. Yeah. So while for me, I had to just shave mine off, right? So yeah. So that's the pressure we are. Social media is a big, lots of positive, but there is a lot of pressure from social media to be like, to act like, to smell like, and to feel like. So yeah, there is a big pressure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Deji?
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your platform. Um, it's a privilege. Um, with regards to the question, what the impact of social media. The impact, I mean, social media is, what drives a lot of things these days. Decision making, attitudes, relationships. And, with social media is, there is, I put it as, you having like a brand new vehicle. And, every time, that vehicle is brand new, you always want to show that vehicle new. But after 10, 15 years, that thing will be wearing off. But with social media is it has to always look good all the time. So there is a perception that, people, present, of themselves, the best of them. But when you spend time, with that individual, you see the other side that social media will never tell you or show you. um, and the impact in terms of body image is, I mean, I break it down in three different sectors, whereby there is the first of all the image of how you look physically. Then there is the part, and that has to do with age also. But then there is also the part of how you then dress. Then you now have the part of where you're now health conscious, all to do with social media. So it's driving a lot of decisions that people are making, both positively and negatively. But that is what I'll say for now as we go deeper in the topic.
Okay, let me quickly give a shout out to those who are already in the chat. Thank you, Maureen, for joining. Hi, Maureen says hello to you all as well, to Deji and to Chidi. Thank you, Anytime Kane. You said definitely a show to follow. Absolutely. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thank you so much. And Robin is here. Robin says, great topic today. Coincidentally, I am doing a masking test with ChatGPT, Chat, which has a lot of psychological, something like that stuff about me. What does it say about you, Robin? Put it in the chat. Let's see. And Olarewaju Owolabi says, behave, Chidi. Chidi, somebody's saying you to behave already. What have you done? Amaka, thank you for joining. Hi, Amaka. I've had a lot of no's, people who are saying that they have not felt like social media has pressured them to, change anything about them or anything like that. I've had quite a few. Who's Huddle Master 07? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Laddie. Thank you for joining. Only other men. Olanobaju, okay. And Robin says, no real struggles. I have to be a man. Getting better though, but male suicides would say not, which is true, which I think Chidi said something, alluded to that earlier. And Cedar says no, because of the cultural stigma and the macho-ness that men are meant to exhibit. Yeah, because men are not, they don't want to say if they've got any problems. Yeah. Men feel able to talk around other men experiencing the same things. Really? Do men feel able to talk about it? That's interesting. Olariwaju, that's interesting if you feel that men can talk about it, because most of the times men don't even, at least the ones I know, they're too macho to see anything. So it's refreshing to see that you see men feel able to talk around other men experiencing the same thing. Okay, there's quite a few comments here already. Thank you all so much. Hi, Nicole. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining. Robin says to Chidi, says, what do you mean, Chidi? I look better than I was when I was 18. Yes, the packaging may have been bashed a little bit. There's new versus character, Deji. New is good and novel, but character of a good car over time is much better. Okay, I hear you, and quite a few.
I like to touch on
Sorry.
packaging. I like to just talk a little bit on packaging there.
Right, go ahead.
Yes. So there's a constant exposure to unrealistic body standards, six pack, bulging biceps, anti-aging filters, you see men even now doing so many things to just stay young. Nobody wants to expose their age.
Yeah.
And I think again, it comes back to that social media thing. And for men over 50, sometimes we can feel kind of invisible online. The kids will tell me, "Oh, Daddy, you guys are on Facebook, but we're not doing what's it
Instagram or
called?
Snapchat,
Snapchat,
something.
Instagram. We call it pestagram. Pests. So there's a lot of pressure on men, on all of us, to kind of look young, like your RD22. Was it? Who's
Robin,
that?
his name is
He says,
Robin.
I look better than Robin, right? Robin. The packaging may have been bashed a bit, but we are trying all our best to keep that packaging. I started doing push-ups, and the kids came to me and said, "Oh, Daddy, your six pack is coming up." I said, "Is it?" And I was kind of excited. I'm thinking, why am I excited? So yeah. So and this is what we're trying to do. And somebody also mentioned something about suicide. Is this a right time to just touch on that?
We'll come to that, because that's another subject on its own. I think, yeah, if you want to talk about it now, yeah, we can talk about it now if you want. That's okay. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to put things in perspective. About 11 men in the UK kill themselves every day. Now, there was a study that was done by the Prior Group, where they looked at 1,000 men in the UK last year, And 77% of those that were polled actually suffered with mental health. So what they're saying is every out of every 4 men you see on the street, especially from 40 years, 3 will suffer from mental health. Now, of those, 40% of those say they've never spoken to anybody. So one of your somebody mentioned in the chat that they actually talk, but actually the statistics is saying no. We know that we men, we don't talk. We don't like to talk. We don't even talk when we are sick, let alone when we have mental issues. It's a taboo for us, and we'll talk about that later on. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay. Did you have any comments before we ask the next question?
Well, I think yeah, I just want to go back to something to do with, before we, dive into this, particular subject is to do with the packaging.
Mm.
Um, and in terms of, people wanting to look a certain way, when they're older. Um, and like Chidi was talking about, him doing press ups and stuff like that. You see, I think there's a consciousness of health now than when our parents, at this sort of age, because now there is that consciousness of, okay, live healthy, look well, don't be overweight, even when you go to your GP, so those things also sort of like influence how people look. Um, Rather than even say pressure of social media, even though social media has a lot of pressure. And
Mm.
when you're talking about things to do with like men not talking and things like that, I'm sure we'll dive more into that, because there is not one rule that fits all for all men. So for us to bear that in mind, there's some men
Mm.
who can easily talk, and there's some who just they don't, they feel they have to hold that macho-ness and hold everything down.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So have you or anyone you know felt the pressure to take steroids or go through extreme measures to achieve a certain physique?
Mm. If
And
I
I'll
can,
ask Deji.
yes, if I can just jump into that, because I mean, I used to train, and but know someone who actually died from steroid use.
Hmm.
I know someone who a gym instructor who used to sell. I know someone who used to inject every week. And I knew a few group of people who were into steroid abuse, and it was something that personally for me, never in a million years, no matter what sort of effect or gain, because of the dangers. And then I tell my my boys who train about the effects and the dangers of it, because it's easily accessible now, even through social media. So it's something what warning people heavily about, and this is all to do with the pressure of the look, and how you want to be perceived. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Very true. Chide?
Yeah, so yes, especially among I think the younger men, in their 40s, especially you're single and young, you're thinking, is it because of my body? That's why I'm not attracting the beautiful girls. So yes, there is pressure to take steroids, and I think like Deji mentioned, these things they're very deadly. I mean, most of these supplements could be okay in the short term, but they're very, very extremely harmful for you in the long term. And I think there's a lot of pressure for men to look young or
Mhm.
stay fit, and it's not always for the health reason, but just for validation
Mhm.
by the external parties, like social media or our friends and family.
Hmm.
So there's that pressure. Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Let me quickly go to the chat. Cindy says the pressure to look a certain way actually affects both women and men alike. I just
Mhm.
believe if you love yourself, you don't need any validation from anyone. Confidence and self-assurance is also key. Absolutely. And Amaka, thank you so much once again for joining. And Robin says, too much to put in the chat. Here's one snippet. You're not just peeling away the mask, you're gently setting them down with grace and self-awareness. Okay, that's a good one. And Mr. Solomon, thank you so much for joining. Amaka says there's nothing wrong with packaging. It expresses your mind. Age is in the mind. If you think young, you stay and look young. It's spiritual. Very true too. Thank you. And Robin says men are like fine wine, better with age. Here, I agree with you 100%. Just like women too. We're like fine wine. We get better with age. I can tell you that for free.
Mhm.
Amaka says, what's on the inside reflects on the outside. Totally. I say that all the time. That's very true. And Robin says, P.S. Chidi, I don't bother with push ups. They are beneath me, literally and figuratively.
I think we have a clown in the house. Fantastic.
Robin is the life. Like it gives me life, honestly, every time. um, And Robin says, I totally agree with Amaka, age being a state of mind. True. But Anyton says, I disagree that men don't talk. They talk in the right environment and a safe place with other men. Okay.
Mhm.
Can I speak to
Okay.
that? Can
Yeah.
I speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And I think this is somebody just sent a love. Yeah, absolutely. I think a safe space. And this is something that the over 50s black men recognized a few years ago. And we do what we call we call it mental health
mm,
workshops, okay? Where we break out 10 to 15 men come in. We actually had one in Luton on Wednesday. And amazing feedback, amazing, where people now realize that they're actually not alone.
Mm.
But some of these people have not spoken in that safe space for 30
mm,
years. For 30 years, people have been bottling things. So, yes, I do agree with your guest there,
yeah,
that mentioned that in the right environment and a safe space with other men, that people will speak.
very
Absolutely.
true. Okay.
But how many of those right place, Cleopatra, do you
Good
have
question.
out there? Which is why this is
Good
a
question.
good question.
This is a
Yeah.
good, and that's why I'm glad about the O5BM. And I think hopefully there's time you can talk more about that later for the men who are also in the chat, so
Mhm.
that they can, they can realize or understand that there is an organization who actually is very aware of this deficiency, I would guess, in terms of men's issues that they don't like talking about. There's a safe place for them to talk about these things. Okay, so what are some of the biggest misconceptions about men's mental health? Chidi.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that. I mean, I think massive misconception is that men don't cry, that they are less emotional. So because the world out there think we are less emotional, we are macho, we are strong, we have all these muscles, we take care of the house, we are out there 6 o'clock in the morning, going to work, coming back 8 o'clock. We are very strong. So that's a massive misconception. I read a book which I recommend for people to read by a guy called Steve Farrer. It's called Finishing the Distance for Your Family. Fantastic book. That was a book that made me, I read it about maybe 15, 20 years ago, of the need to hug and kiss my boys, as they grow. And this is something that, when you go in the Middle East culture, they do that a lot. How many of us would hug our boys and kiss them? Because, oh, no, 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 you don't. What are you doing? That's no, no. So there's a massive misconception. Being strong also means that you should stay silent. So what happens? There was just going back to a research by the University of Hull. They did a research and they were trying to find out why men don't talk about their mental health. 40% said they have learned to deal with it. Another 36%, and I'm going to read this, said, I don't want to burden anyone. This is from University of Hull. Another 29% said, I'm too embarrassed. Can you imagine a
Mm.
man talking, you're a chicken. How can you dare talk about, well, you get on with it, my friend? And this is the message. And that is why it's massive misconception. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank
Mm.
you. AG, any your comment?
Yes, as Chidi has just, pointed out with those statistics, you know, most, men I've spoken to, um, even though they're having struggles, they're having challenges, they're not so forthcoming with, what the problem that they're actually going through until there is a prompting or you having to, explore deeper. And they're afraid to show a sign of weakness because they see it as, being weak in them being able to share, the difficulties they're going through, the loneliness. Because, to do with mental health, that is a big, big thing. And the society that we live in, unfortunately, also fuels that as well, whereby people are very, very isolated, and for that they don't know who they can trust in speaking to. And you find that also within the church space, where within the church, if you're to have any form of counseling or speaking to the people, is the women who are so much forthcoming, who speak, and the man stays in the background and say, okay, maybe the woman should go, things like that. But it's actually the man being the head of the home, and who is supposed to have it together, can be the
Mm.
one that is struggling the most and that needs that strong assistance. So the mental health is something that is cannot be undermined
Mm.
in any shape or form in today's society and culture. um, this is something that must be amplified
Mm-hmm.
heavily, and there must be that environment like Chidi's organization, where you give men a soft landing, a soft space for them to be able to express themselves and help them to bring out their emotions. I mean, Jesus cried, so it tells you that if Jesus can whip, who are we not to show any emotion?
Emotions.
Because men do have emotions. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that they are afraid to show that emotion, so that it doesn't come across as a sign of weakness.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll take some comments because exactly what you said just now, quite a few people have said that. And Cindy says, sometimes you find those who are the loudest and supposedly, first of all, Nicole, thank you so much for your comment. You said body dysmorphia is a real issue. I think when we're talking about the fact that men would take steroids, you know, because they want to, make their physique better or whatever. A lot of it is, and I think it's just women as well have that problem. This body dysmorphia is a real thing, and I think I actually did a show about that some time ago. So Cindy says sometimes you find those who are the loudest and supposedly happiest are those really masking the real pain they're going through. I
Mm,
just feel that that's really a red flag for help. 100%, Cindy. I 100% agree with you, because the next thing you find out that they said somebody's taking some tablets, or they've jumped off the bridge somewhere, or they've done one thing or the other. And yeah,
mm,
you said, but I was talking to them the other day and they were so bubbly, they were life of the show, life of the party, and yet there's things inside that they're bottling in that they don't want to talk to anybody about. And Olarewaju says one of the biggest misconceptions is that we are not supposed to show weakness or emotions. Exactly,
mm.
exactly. And Cindy says, I believe a man who shows vulnerability is a strong man, 100%.
Absolutely.
And Richie
Absolutely.
D says that's very true, Sir Chidi. So they agree with what Chidi has just said. And Richie also continues that it's the social impact as well as men trying to stay in line with what they believe defines masculinity. Yeah,
Mm,
social pressure, social pressure. So I think we talked about this earlier, but I'll just ask again, just in case there are other points that have come up in your mind since. Why do you think men find it harder to open up about their emotions compared to women? We talked about the fact that we don't want they feel they don't want to be seen as being weak, But what other reasons do you think? And Chidi?
Yeah,
mm,
yeah. There's a negative stigma, Cleopatra,
Mm,
about this. Um, in that research I mentioned with prior group, about 30% of the men said they were embarrassed to actually talk about their mental health. And the embarrassment could also be, it's good to actually understand, why do men actually suffer mental health? We have actually addressed the cause, right? So the data is telling us that 30% of the reason men suffer mental health is job pressure, pressure at work. Okay. Another 30% is about finance. So all of a sudden, you can see between work pressure and finance, people are having this kind of
And
pressure.
also
And
relationships as well.
when
Maybe
you,
they're in a
Mm.
bad
yeah,
relationship.
so and this is another thing. That data didn't talk about relationship. Actually, the third thing the data talked about was health. So when you have physical issues in terms of physical health, you actually then transmit or go on to become part of your mental health issue, because you're now worried, anxious, then you get depressed and all that. Yes, relationship issue, absolutely. But one of the things I learned is, when there's cash, there's no relationship issue. When there's money,
You
believe
think
me, there's
so?
no relationship issue.
No.
Yes, 75% of relationship and marriage breakdown has been related to finance. Data is there. Okay. Now, I'm not saying there's no Judas in the house, but what we're saying is most of the relationship issues are finance. That finance is either you have no work, or the work is not bringing
Mm.
enough money, and that becomes a mental issue, because you're now thinking, you're not sleeping properly, you're not eating well, and all those things kind of come together. Deji, go ahead,
Mm.
go for it.
Well, thanks for saying that. But as Cleopatra was saying, relationship has a massive, massive percentage in that. Yes, finances, but the relationship. When you're in a happy relationship, that financial pressure is not so heavy on you, because you're in a happy place, and both of you see that. If you're in a good relationship, both of you see that pressure has been workable. But when that relationship is not so good, you will have that burden heavy on you. And from a man's perspective, and because of generations in time past, the man is supposed to be the provider. Things have changed over time, where women are providing even more than the men in the home. Things have changed, but then the core things that to look at in this is, how do people then work these things out in the home, to ensure that there is no breakdown of the head of the home, so to speak, because the pressure is mostly on the men. And as this topic is the men who tend to carry that burden on themselves, and then they don't share anything. I'm sure Chidi would have seen this through your forum, and in my sessions of having to counsel different couples, you just find that it's not something that they can even easily discuss among themselves.
Hmm. Honestly, this is really deep, and I'm so thankful for this topic, because a lot of things are also in the chat that are agreeing with what Deji and Chidi is saying. Um, um, Cindy says, you will find out that most women are mentally stronger than men, and that does not make them weak. Isn't that why God said he should create a helpmeet for the man? So sometimes when a man is weak, the woman can be the strength.
Mm,
But the only thing is, sometimes there's a fine line sometimes, because when a woman feels like maybe she is in a better position, sometimes she might want to make the man, she might want to, I don't know, make the man feel some kind of way, like he's less than a man. And men, their ego is very important to them. So I
Theo,
think we should be
can
very
I jump
careful
in?
with how we support our men, and still make them feel like they're the kings, no matter what. They're
Mm,
still kings, especially if you see that their hearts, they really love you, and they want the relationship to work. They're doing their best, even if it's not good enough. Still encourage them, because that would actually boost them to carry on and do better. And Richie says, I have seen men open up and was told they are feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That
Very
is
true.
that is unbelievable. Robin says much of the male inability to show weakness is from inbuilt prehistoric subconscious programming. The limbic system causes this, a complex brain network, including amygdala, stop it, Robin, hippocampus, hypothalamus. Stop it, Robin. You're blowing my mind right now.
I like that
Exactly.
actually.
You know,
I
so it's
like
not
that.
just it's something that is inbuilt, you know, from way back, prehistoric stuff, which is very true. Robin, please keep it coming, because this is education right here. And Cindy says, if men can speak out, especially in their marriages, they would find that their wives and partners can be a strong support system for them. Not saying that it's the case in all relationships, but can minimize pain. And Nnamdi says, Nnamdi, thanks so much for joining. Says it may also be not recognizing what they are feeling. Feeling is a big thing now, unlike previous years. So, you know, now, you know, you hear this thing about, oh, my mental health, I need to protect my mental health. I need to, before you can't even talk about things like that, especially in the African setting. I,
Mm.
I cannot, in fact, I cannot ever remember my parent, my mom or my grandma, like, even though they mean well and everything, to say I love you to your child,
Mm,
I love
mm,
you,
mm,
that, you know, we will say
mm.
now, just, you know, to our loved ones. It was a big thing then, you know. I love you, what's all that about? Like, even if you tell them, I love you, mom, or, you know, they're like, are you okay? What's, do you know what I mean? But those things like that help to build
Yeah.
people's psychological, you know, well-being. I'm going to give you a second to comment, Chidi, on that. But let me say what Amaka, let me
Okay.
read Amaka's comment. It says there is also an element of culture to it. In Africa, oh, we just said that. In Africa, for instance, in Igbo land, they are trained and encouraged to keep their feelings tight and not express it. Most of them grow up that way. And then Olariwaju says financial hardship definitely affects relationship. I know a lot of
Mm.
men divorced now due to lost contacts. It's also affects,
Probably
yeah, contracts, I
contracts.
guess. Yeah.
Contracts.
Mm.
It also affects men's libido, depression, and anxiety. Wow, that's so true. That's so true. And you guys will talk
Mm,
about all this. Let me just
mm,
quickly take all their comments, and then I'll just leave the floor open for you guys to comment on all this. And Richie says, here in the
mm.
UK, I believe men are normally treated with less respect. You guys bear all this in mind. And Mr. Solomon, thank you so much for joining, says, we are in a society where if we open up, it's used against, or if men open up, it's used against them, that they are weak. Okay, I think somebody said that earlier, but that's so true, Mr. Solomon. And Robin says to Richie D, re feminine men, I am assuming that you are not including men who like wearing dresses at weekends. Robin, is that something you want to share? Is that something you want to share, Robin? And Richie says to Robin, they are not, those are not men. Solomon says, I mean, if men open up. Yes, true. And this discussion can go very deep. Richie, go as deep as you want to go. That's what this whole show is about. Go as deep as you want to go, baby. Go as deep, because this is exactly what we want to hear. And Robin says to Richie, well, technically they are, though not demonstrating typical male expectations. Okay, so yeah, do you want to make comments on that before we ask the next questions, Chidi and Deji?
Mm.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so I like what Amaka mentioned. I think it was about the element
Yeah,
of culture to it being in Africa, and I believe also I think it was Nandi who mentioned that not recognizing what they are feeling. That feeling is a big thing now, unlike in previous years. So it's possible that this could be linked to our days of slavery, when men were learned to bear abuse, torture, and actually to accept this. So this is just something to just bear in mind, that we've had to go through very difficult and tough times, and you dare not cry, right? So if you read Things Fall Apart, for anybody that read the book Things Fall Apart, Okonkwo, the strong guy, you know. So there's something there, and this means that why men don't seek for help. Let me just there was something I was looking at, and I think I kind of just a quick research which said that 40% of men that were polled in that 1,000 men survey said it would take thoughts of suicide or self-harm to compel them to get professional help. Can you
Wow.
imagine? 40% said they rather wait for the feeling of suicide before they go and seek professional help. So that really tells you how much we tend to bottle these things in. And making men to understand the need to seek help is one thing, but making the society to remove that judgment placed on them, on those who somebody mentioned earlier on are the feminines. Somebody said that earlier on,
Mm.
right? That when men speak up,
Yeah.
they are kind of like, you know, women. And who was this thinking women are weak? I mean, that's another approach, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I've seen generally, actually, women are really strong mentally. Though the statistics tells us that more women are depressed, and that depression could be post pregnancy, right, or post, those kind of things, dealing with um more things that are very intimate, which is why 1 in 5 women are depressed compared to 1 in 8 men.
Mm.
But the women speak more. The women have more avenues. My wife will be on the phone for 2 hours,
Mm.
and I'm thinking, what is she talking about for 2 hours, right? So women speak more, but men
Mm.
don't, which is where the over 50s Black Men Forum. We had that workshop, and I am not kidding you. It was meant to be 2.5 hours. 6:30 we
Mm.
started. 9:15 we're still
Wow.
going, and we said we need to leave. It's
Mm.
getting late. So over to you, Deji. I'll stop there. Thank
Mm.
you.
I think there is something that is uh, very essential and that is first of all two things in one, going back to the original, why God created man and woman in the first instance, and having that good understanding, because I think currently that has been lost. So when things like that is lost, abuse is inevitable. Then you don't know the purpose of why you're here, what you're to do, things like that. Then there is the identity also, that a lot of people don't have that sense of identity. And I think, it was Cindy who mentioned something about, uh, I'm trying to remember if you can remind me of that, question.
Let me
I
go
think
back.
to do with the mental health. Oh,
Let me go back. If men can speak out, especially in their marriages, they would find that their wives and partners can be strong support system for them. Not saying,
wonderful.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now, I mean, which is, that it goes back to having that clear understanding, that help, that support, which who you are, who um this is something that as Chidi's mentioned through his forum, and that they have that support of people speaking, and the men being able to have that forum to speak, but without you having a clear identity of who you are, because it says, as you think, so would you be. So people who go on about my mental health, my this, what is going on with their thoughts, where are they expressing those thoughts, what is feeding all that information to them. And mostly you find that even when you go to your doctor, all they're going to do is maybe just medicate you. You start taking antidepressants. The stuff doesn't really go away. And you then become dependent on that. But
Hmm.
when there is a happy environment, the right support network around you, then there's other pressures of, like we talked about, work. We talked about, the health, the finances. If those things are addressed, and then we also use that to speak to the youth who are coming up, our young men, who are coming up, because okay, from 50 or 40 onwards, we have, I mean, our lives that were already mapped out. But the
Hmm.
young men now who don't even have, those sort of like, good mentorship in helping them to raise those children in the right way, when the man maybe is not in the house and it's just the mother alone, and having to help them, to address, key issues before those things develop into something drastic later on. And as we're discussing this, is something also to take into consideration that okay, the young who are in their 20s, 30s, who are coming up, do they also have that, or is there an outlet in helping them in that way?
Hmm. Good one. Good one. Wow, I'm loving these comments, guys, as well. And thank you so much to Chidi and Deji for the questions you're commenting on so far. I'll tell you what the audience is saying at the moment. Nicole says generic trauma and genetic memory across the African diaspora. Okay, I think we talked about that when we're talking about the fact that because of what we've been through during the slave trade and everything, yeah, there's a lot of trauma still associated even until now. And then Cindy says culture is a big part of this issue amongst men. I've heard fathers say to their sons, even in this era, that you have to be strong as men. Don't cry. They tell them you need to hold it in, right? And then Richie says, if I should go deep, I would like to highlight the abuse rate of men by their wives or partner in the country. Also, there are supporting programs for men, and this is the only country I have ever. Okay, and then I'll just carry on from what he says before I talk about Robin's comment as well. The only country I know that has support groups for abused men, and have been told men are afraid to. I think he's still he's still saying more. So he's going to finish typing. And then Robin says, Richie, okay, I think it was when talking about my dear. So Robin was talking about dressing up as a woman and things like that. But this is really interesting. That for seeing this comment as well about the culture being a part of the issue where men will still say to their fathers and to their sons now, hold it in, you're a man, you have to be strong, even till now. And Richie says that um, there's the issue about men being abused by their partners. That at least they're talking about it here in this country, but it's not so much in other countries. Any comments, Chidi and DJ?
Can I just quickly jump in
Go
on
ahead,
this one,
Deji.
because
Please,
I
go
know of
ahead.
a man who the wife used to, I mean, really deal with him, honestly, and he will scream crying out. um and that was, I mean, it was something that I'd heard of it, but having to see that was, very, very traumatic. And this is something also whereby men don't, they can't talk about, things that, they may suffer in the hands of, their partners,
Mm,
what they're going through, because that thing was going on for a long time. And if it wasn't by chance to discover that at that time, nobody would have known. And asking him, how long has this been going on? Oh, it's been going on for about 8, 9 years, really. And that sort of a thing now is like, wow. So he had nowhere, no one to speak to. If he was to speak to somebody, he will look as if he's weak, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's not a man. So the culture, there is so much stigma around, men having to hold it down.
mm,
And not everybody has that capacity to hold it down. It's good for men to cry. Emotion is a natural, normal thing for, any man. but then there is a lot going on behind the scenes that is just not, honestly, you'll be shocked. It's just not
Mm,
talked about at all. Um, not at all. So,
gosh. Chidi?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, I think I did meet the CEO of an organization that she actually set up this organization because she discovered men being abused by their partners. And what happens is when a woman calls the police, because of the whole stereotype,
mhm,
they never ever listen to the man. Never. So her organization, the charity organization, is trying to change that narrative to say you must listen to both sides of the story. So a woman calls, oh, the man is this, the man is that. Instantly, the man is ostracized, is blamed, So that culture is changing. But what we are doing is instead of waiting for the situation to get, like you said, 8, 9 years, that's a long, long,
mhm,
long, long time. I mean, if it was me, I would have gone by now,
Seriously.
right?
yeah,
And which is why we have 11 committing suicide every day. Not to talk about that's registered, not those that haven't been recorded, those who are going through depression and feeling suicidal. So the numbers are massive.
Mm,
And this is what we're trying to do at Over 50s Black Men Forum. We're trying to encourage men to open up in a very judgment free
mhm,
environment. You're not
mm,
judged, absolutely not judged. Um, just talking about this a little bit on the physical side rather than mental, we have this Ask the Doctors series, which is actually happening on the 17th of April, where people dial in a safe space again on Zoom, and you can ask doctors anything. Somebody mentioned earlier on about what stress causes. I think it was Elanre about libido and
yeah,
all that
depression
stuff,
and anxiety and stress.
depression and all that. Thank you. This is where you ask doctors and say, which drug should I take? And the doctors, black doctors, we don't use any white, black doctors, they will tell you, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that in a very safe
Mm,
space. Why? You can smell the doctors, they smell like you, they feel like you, they look like you. So a non-judgmental space is very, very
mm,
necessary to combat things like this so that people can come early when they get abused. But yes, men are being abused
mm.
big time.
Wow,
Absolutely.
wow. More comments, more comments. Akin says, not all women are supportive towards their husbands. Okay, so bear that in mind, guys. And
mhm,
Cindy says, I agree, there are a lot of men being abused by their wives. They are even afraid to report this abuse to the authorities because
mhm.
when the police laugh at them when they report it. So if the police is laughing at you, where do you go? you know. And
Correct.
then on Larry Waju
Correct.
says identity crisis is real. The role of men in the West is not like Africa, where men had their clear cut roles.
Yeah.
When women become breadwinners, men feel incapable, especially when they are being reminded daily. This is what I was saying earlier about when a woman feels like she's now maybe helping out in terms of being the sole provider, or at least providing more than a man. They might want to start just, oh gosh, they just keep hammering the man on the head. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, you are a man, you're supposed to do. Oh, it's not the best, man. And Cindy says some of the men staying silent in the relationship because the women threaten them with the children, which is another thing women do. They threaten them with the children. They want to take the children away from them, you know. And then Richie says that's a good point to make, Cinder. The court systems have here in the UK are biased against men. Women
Mhm.
are way more supported, I guess you wanted to say, way more supported than men, which puts men at a greater disadvantage. Over to you, Deji. What do you think about that? And then Chidi.
You know, sorry, excuse me. Interestingly enough, there is two different worlds. You have the world of, the Black African within, the African society, and within the Western world, you have how things are, where truly, the courts or wherever you go, they favor the women. Things have really changed. It's like they're turning the thing upside down for the women to be really on top. And that's why you see so many things coming through in society. Women playing football, different things trying to show the same strength as a man. And, Cindy did say something that I just remembered now from before, that, a woman, supporting the man in the right way. Because if
Mhm.
that man never fulfills his potential, a woman has failed. Because really, for a man to really fulfill his potential, the involvement of, excuse me, of, the wife is crucial. Because without is that no man is an island. Um, so I mean that is my that is just my take on that. I'll let CD just go ahead and shed more light on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think they always say that behind every successful man, there's a woman. And I think this is one thing we need to remind, the women that it shouldn't be instantaneous. So if things don't happen now, there has to be patience,
Mm,
resilience in relationships, and um, a man's mental well-being and balance depends highly on who is who is he's sleeping with on the bed. I think that's very, very critical. I know some men, they would wait for their women to go to bed before they come back home,
Yeah.
right? So they will stay out as long as
mhm,
possible because they don't want to meet the woman
Yeah.
awake. And that's not good. That's not good. And, to the point about the court system being biased against men, I mean, that's absolutely right. Just like the police is biased against men, they will laugh at men that are being abused. So that whole thing, and there's a need for public campaign. So let's talk about solutions here. What can be done? Let's use social media, let's use
Mm.
mainstream to challenge these outdated stereotypes, yeah, and then reinforce that men and women, we also say that they are created equally. Yes, we know that there are some things men are good at, and there's some things women are much better than in terms of, dealing with the baby. Because, a woman bonds with a baby for 9 months, the relationship is
Mm.
different. A guy just says, hey, oh, the baby's out, congratulations. But the woman has been bonding with that baby for 9 months. So these are two different species with two different mental dispositions. The woman with her patience should really exhibit that patience, especially when the man is going through a very difficult patch. And hence, women play a very important role in the mental stability
Mm.
of men. And and I think I'll stop at that. But there's a key thing to note here in terms of equal parenting advocacy. And I think I'm going down another alley here, but just something to touch on there.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we'll definitely come to that in a second. But is the stigma around men seeking therapy finally changing, or do we think there's still a long way to go?
Okay, so I'm going to start off that with the statistics that said, even though I think I mentioned this, 56% of men that were interviewed actually would seek their employers would tell their employers they have some mental issues and they'll take a day off. 46% said they will be embarrassed. I mean, that's a
yeah.
high number to tell their employers that they want to take a day off because of their mental. So they'll give another reason.
Mm.
So, so is this slowly changing? Yeah, I like how you put it there, Cleopatra. Slowly, but not good enough.
Mm,
We need, like Deji mentioned earlier on, people should be told that, man, hey, it's okay to cry. You have emotions, right? And when men can feel okay to cry, feel okay, yes, I have emotions, then we can begin to see that stigma being changed slowly. I mean, obviously, more men. I know of a young guy, I think in his 30s, that went for therapy, which was quite encouraging. But I tell you, ask those who are over 50s, at least from our forum, that have ever gone for professional therapy. They'll say, no. I actually know a couple in a relationship that is toxic. They've asked them to go for professional counseling. And the man said, are you crazy? He's telling the wife, are you crazy? This is our business. What are we going for? So the stigma is still there. Yes, it's slowly changing, but with the younger generation than the older generation. And generally, people look at therapy as something crazy. Yeah, that's how people look at therapy. But there's a need to change that narrative, and it can only be changed through promoting counseling. Even the workshops we're doing now, we're telling men, look, if we think you're in extreme situation, we do actually recommend counseling, just like we recommend going to see a financial advisor when we think you're having some financial issues. So in that same token, I think yes, the answer is a small yes. The stigma is slowly changing. Over to
Deji?
you, Deji.
I'll be very personal on this one. There is still a long way to go. But I will use myself as an example. When I was having some, difficulties, um, and this is why it's crucial to have a good network around that you can access. And having that difficulty, I was like, okay, who can I speak to? Okay, you try and speak to a friend. He doesn't really understand. He doesn't know how to deal with such an issue. So for me was to then approach my local church, and having that sort of like support was crucial. And with that, they could speak to you, they could give you counsel, they could give you from both the spiritual and the physical aspect of it, and help you. And then I also went to go and search some professionals out there to see what is available. But then um on some other level there was cost implications, so you just you stick to, okay, the church. And the church sometimes are not fully equipped to even be able to deliver for you in the right manner. And that is why I'm really passionate about supporting and encouraging people, guiding them through challenges that they have, and what they have been through, because there is a long way still to go, for especially men. Women, I think, is a lot easier, because women can easily just share
Share.
emotions, feelings, with friends, family, even within the church. You'll find that, honestly, most people I've had to speak to, honestly, 85% are women. Seriously, 85%, are women, even though it is affecting the man even a lot more. But 85 women, 85% of the women are the ones, wanting to talk, wanting to, but the men just want to hold it down. So
Mm.
we still have, some
Oh,
way to
way
go.
to go.
Yeah.
I'm conscious about time because we're already an hour into it already. But very quickly then, Cindy says, when you come home to a cantankerous woman, there is no way a man can be mentally stable. The woman is supposed to provide a safe and relaxed haven for the man. Like it or not, a woman is a woman. Exactly. Each one has their roles. We all have our roles to play in a relationship. And Richie says there is a serious attack against masculinity. Yeah, especially in this
I agree.
society, you
I,
know. Okay, so do fathers get enough credit in modern parenting, or are they often overlooked? Deji?
well, honestly, they're often overlooked. There's not enough credit. Even just maybe like babysitting, or taking the children for football activities, helping to cook, things like that. I mean, I love to cook, so and just cooking or things like that. You don't even, sometimes maybe you just okay, it's fine, but sometimes it's just really overlooked. And I think the man who is supposed to be really encouraged and charged up, It's not. It doesn't seem to be the case in some instances. So there is a long way, to go with that as well.
Chidi.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, fathers are often overlooked. Absolutely, there's no doubt. Especially more so if they are not the primary caregiver, they are finished.
Mm.
I mean, you're finished. I mean, already you're overlooked, and if you're not the primary caregiver, you're finished. And yet, many fathers are involved in their children's lives. So I just give you an example from my own personal experience. And this happened recently. So we just finished eating, and my son said, "Thank you, mommy." And I was on the table, right, with mommy and dad, "Thank you, mommy," and walked away. I had to call him back. I said, "What happened to daddy? Daddy brought the money for this food, right? Mommy did the cooking. All you can see is the cooking side of it, right?" And this is what happens in every aspect of family life. So what they see is, oh, mommy is there in the morning, mommy is there doing the school run. Who bought the car? Nobody even sees that. Who bought the fuel? Nobody sees that. So this is massively, fathers are absolutely overlooked. Many years ago, maybe I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I brought out an iron to iron my shirt. And my daughter at the time, who was 13 years, and she looked at me. She said, "Daddy, can you iron?" And I said, she's never seen me iron, right? Because it's either it goes to dry cleaner or my wife is doing it, or somebody, or my sons are doing it. So she's never seen me iron. For her, when I told her, I said, "Do you know I used to change your nappy?" She's like, "Daddy, that's impossible." So daddies are obviously overlooked. Daddy cannot do the things at home and go out and be working. It's impossible. We have shared roles, and each relationship will decide how they want to do it, right? So in our relationship, mommy, you're going to stay at home, you're going to look after the kids. Daddy, you're going to go out. And then there's a respect. So I call my wife the executive housewife. And we as husbands, we give that respect. And that respect becomes mutual. Now, we also need to remind those kids that walk up and say, "Mommy, thank you," and forget the dad. We need to pull them by the ear and bring them back and tell them, "Hey, daddy also provided this food. Even though you didn't see that in the kitchen, daddy also provided this food." So, yeah, fathers and we need to change this narrative and celebrate engaged fatherhood, engaged parenthood. So there has to be advocacy, a parenting advocacy, equal parenting advocacy. Each person brings their strength. The woman brings her empathy. The man brings his firmness into the
Mm.
equation. When the woman is pampering the child, the man is coming up with the iron rod,
Mhm.
not in terms of spanking, but in terms of firmness. So that's that balance, and that's what makes a family unit. Thank you.
100%. Thank you so much. Quite a few comments. Honestly, guys, I'm so pleased to see these comments in the chat, because this is really where what we're talking about. Cinda says, no, I think it's now Special K. Special K, thank you so much for joining. Says counseling is good, but under which principles are we going to base counseling? Is it on human understanding or based on God's words? Because actually talking about that, Special K, I think it was even today or yesterday, I was watching a church program, and I remember the pastor saying something about yeah, counseling, but obviously church sort of thing, because they feel as Christians, you cannot take counseling from somebody who's not a Christian, because on that, what basis are they going to counsel you? Is it based on their worldly perspective or based on biblical principles or biblical perspective? So that's another issue as well about counseling. Who are you taking counseling from? You, that's a Christian that seem to like, you've got God. Why do you need a heathen and a non-Christian to counsel you, kind of thing? Okay, so that's one.
Um,
So we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me just read all the questions. I can still thank you so much also for your comments. Says, the environment we live in encourages a lot of these abuse by women. Some men absorb a lot of insult because of the children. We talked about that earlier, which is honestly, I think we're going to talk about and we're going to have another show, guys. Honestly, we're talking about men's, health, mental health, and everything now, but we're going to have another show about all these things that we're talking about in terms of relationships, in terms of loveless marriages, in terms of all, and like we need to throw more light into all this, because all these things, they actually are rolled together in a way. So we're going to have another show about this topic, but in a more deeper way. So I hope you guys are going to join by then. Nicole says, fantastic session. Thank you so much, my darling Nicole. And Cindy says, fathers getting credit depends on the kind of woman you are with. Personally, my husband is a perfect hands-on father since my kids were born. I give him all the credit. And Tony Agunjobi, thank you so much for joining. Tony says, really great session. Well done, guys. Thank you so much. Mumsy, hi. Mumsy says, mommy's boys, mommy buys fuel too. Fuel and food too. It's not just the men, women do that bit as well. And Olariwaju says, honestly, in this society, the hierarchy taken seriously is first the woman, then the kids, the dog, the cat, and then the man, and before the man is considered, which is true. And I keep saying this to women, because sometimes when they say, oh, when there's a problem, or if you want to select or choose who you're going to save if there's a fire or whatever, they say, oh, my kids. And I'm thinking, okay, I hear you, but at the end of the day, your kids actually should be like number two. Your husband should be number one. And because at the end of the day, those kids will grow up and go and they live their lives. And then you're still stuck with the same man that you wouldn't put as priority. Hello, how does that work? Make it make sense to me, And Richie agrees, says, so true. Cinda says, when my kids say thanks to me, I let them know it's both your dad and I always hammer that into their heads. And my first is 23. I let him get his credit, which is true, and that's how it should be. So well done, Cindy. Okay, guys. Deji, Chidi, any comments before I go on to the next question? I'm looking at the time.
Yeah. I think what Larry said there, and I think you mentioned that, Cleopatra, in terms of we as partners, men or women, we need to understand what the hierarchy is in any relationship. When you came together, the kids were not there, and after a while, the kids will not also be there. So that priority is very, very important. And talking about that relationship, even though it's a different topic altogether, I think there's also a need for people to also know what brings them together. Because if there's nothing that brings you two together, then it becomes a very boring stuff, right? So yeah, and I like seeing this comment about when the kids say thanks, reminds them to also say thank you to the one that made it possible, because it takes two to tango. Absolutely. Right? It takes two to tango. We have to remember Absolutely. That all the time.
So what role do male friendships play in emotional well-being? Do men feel comfortable leaning on their friends for support, male friends? I asked that question because I have a friend who is a male friend of mine, and he is so not very comfortable with talking to his wife. He would rather talk to, not me, thankfully, but he's got a female friend that he confides in, and I said to him, be very careful about this, because you don't want your emotional support to come from another woman. Before you know what's happening, you're falling in love with the woman. And your wife is thinking, but my wife doesn't listen. She doesn't care. She's always church. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but find a way of reaching to her, because you cannot be depending on this woman so much and talking to her. And then the next thing is, but she's nice, she's this, she's that. I can already feel like you're falling for this woman already. You got to snap out of it. Out of it, So yeah, so what role do you think men play when it comes to friendship? Do they feel comfortable sharing their issues with each other as men?
Yeah. I would say the answer is it's absolutely crucial. I mean, I'm not just saying that they need to. It's crucial. Why is it crucial? From our experience, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but when I see what has happened in the last few years within the over 50s Black Men Forum, within the mental health workshops, within the table tennis sessions that we play every week in 7 different locations, Absolutely. I mean, the support, the because the emotional space you're in, it's not something that is easy to grab by the opposite sex. Hence why men, when you find that a man, for example, will not, even with that relationship you're talking about, Cleopatra, with your friend, he's not going to in any shape or form cry to this lady. Impossible. How dare you cry to a lady? I mean, the lady will just like, what is this chicken doing next to me, right? That's it. You're finished. But when you have a safe space, we've seen men
Broke down
cry.
cry.
There's
Yeah.
no, because of that safe space, they know that. I mean, somebody sent a comment from our last workshop and he said, it's so nice. First time he's attending the workshop, he said, it's so nice to feel I am not alone. Can you imagine? It's so nice to feel I am not alone. So when people create safe spaces like we do at Over 50 Black Men Forum, we're encouraging more emotional openness. That's what we're doing. We're openness. When men learn to trust and lean on each other, what you find is that their mental health improves. I mean, massively. Okay, and that's the key thing. Brotherhood
Mm-hmm.
matters. Brotherhood
Yeah.
matters. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Deji.
Yes, very. I completely agree. You men have to be willing to be vulnerable with one another.
Mm,
Um, and I always say to any close friend, if you don't want to hear the truth, don't call me, because we have to
Mhm,
be honest and truthful with one another, in helping to support each other,
mm,
because you really need your fellow brother, your fellow man, for both of you to be able to speak. A man leaning on a woman is not ideal, because that becomes, he will get emotional, and like you rightly said, Cleopatra, feelings could start developing either way.
mm.
So it's not, that's not ideal. But man to man, yeah, and they have to be willing to be vulnerable. That is something that is very crucial there for me.
Mm.
Um, so that you can be able to, open up and be able to speak and share and know that there is confidentiality, in your
mhm,
interaction, because there's
mhm,
deep things that men would not want to talk about. It might be, even financial,
mhm,
it might be emotional, it might be relationship, it might be sexual.
Mm.
It's sometimes could be a struggle. A man can be struggling with homosexuality and having nobody that he can open up to.
Yeah.
So
mhm,
those are other
mhm,
things that you can, for one to really, really consider, because I've come across such before.
Mm.
mhm,
Wow. Do you know
mhm,
something? I cannot wait for the next show we're gonna have, because these are the sort of things that we will be talking about in the next show. We're gonna go really, really deeper into these sort of conversations. Special K, thank you so much
mhm,
again for your comment. He says, but I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. 100%. There's no doubt about that. Everybody, as Christians, anyway, we should know that. And even if we're not Christians, if you love your partner, why wouldn't you want to put them after God is your partner? Why wouldn't you want to put them first? And why would you disrespect them? I always say to somebody, before you get to the level where you start disrespecting your husband, the love is no longer there. Or disrespecting your wife.
mhm,
The love is not, because love is kind. Love is patient.
mhm,
Love keeps no record of wrong. It doesn't abuse. It doesn't manipulate. It's not narcissistic. It's not. It's not
mhm,
coercive. It's not. Love is just nurturing. You want the best for the person. You try to love them in spite of their faults, and you love them to correct them. You don't love them. You don't bring out the worst in them. You find some men they'll be so pushed to the limit sometimes. They start doing things they've never done before to women because they cannot
mhm,
take it anymore. They start being abusive,
mhm,
or they start doing other things. Like this friend of mine that I'm talking about, He was very faithful to his wife. He never, he never cheated. That was the last thing on his mind. But he became sexually frustrated,
Mm,
sexually starved for years. His wife is so churchy that she doesn't want to, do it. And meanwhile, what are you married to this man for? And so this woman is now kind of like taking that space. And that's why I said to him, be very careful. But I think I'm just saying my own, because I think it's a lost cause. I think the ship has sailed already. But sometimes women push men
mm,
to do certain things that they don't really want to do ordinarily, because you love your wife. You don't want to do anything. But when he even told his wife, this is what I'm going to do, the woman said, go ahead. It's all right. Do what you like.
mm,
Why would you say that to a man that you claim to love? Let me quickly take
mm,
this one comment and then one more question before we round up. Um, some Tony Egujumbi says, yes, another show is needed. These are topics needing deeper discussions and understanding. Trust me, Tony. And if you want to come on the show, anybody who wants to come on the show for the next show, please send me an email to empowerlifewithcleopatra@gmail.com. Empowerlifewithcleopatra@gmail.com. Or just drop your email address on the chat and I will reach out to you at the end of the show. There's so much we have to talk about. So much. Bumi, thank you for joining, darling. Olaroji is talking to Cindy and he says, Cinders, if the house is toxic and you avoid the cantankerous woman failing falling into the hands of the other woman is almost inevitable. This is true. We said it earlier. And special cases, 1 Timothy 2:12 says, I do not permit a woman to teach or usurp authority over the man, but
mhm.
to be in silence. Okay, well, silence is subjective, but hey, I agree that a woman is under the man in terms of authority biblically, but that's not to say that the woman should not have a voice. The
Mhm.
woman has a say, but I think the Bible says that we should submit to one another in love.
Yeah.
Yeah, submits to one another in love. Eddie's events. Thank you so much, Eddie's events, for joining. Says men expressing emotions with a female other than a spouse is a healthy step towards emotional well-being and breaking away from stereotypes, so long as lines aren't blurred and they need a female perspective. I agree with you, but in this case, I think the ship has sailed. But I do agree with you. Okay, as long as the lines aren't blurred, because seriously, um, I have, like I said, I have male friends, and I'm not in a relationship now, but when when I'm in a relationship, I have some male friends who are like best friends to me, who are like brothers, and even my brothers, because I grew up with brothers. I would rather speak with them so that I can learn from a male perspective how to behave better to steer the relationship back on track if the man is complaining about something. I'm not just going to sit on my high horse and think I know everything. I would, but the lines are not blurred. That's the thing. So I agree with you 100%, Eddie's events. Heart to Bumi as well. Hearts to you. Eniton says, well done, Cleopatra, Deji, and Chidi. Good show and fantastic contributions by all. Well done, everyone. Thank you so much, Eniton. I love you. I appreciate you. And special cases, advice for men. Better to live in a corner of a roof than share a house with a nagging wife.
That's right.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is something that women should learn, right? This is very, very.
Yeah.
I mean, that comment by did you say who was that?
Any
Special
Anytime.
special care. Fantastic comment. And I think this is something that women should really take on board. But I also like the comment, from that talked about emotions with a female other than spouse, and it's both ways. Men
Mm,
expressing emotions with a female or female expressing emotion with a male. I think it's absolutely healthy, because and so long as you don't cross those boundaries. Obviously, it's hard. I mean, and these are the things you have to tell yourself. For example, don't go to see the person at night. You can be chatting on the phone for 2 hours. That's fine. And,
mm,
just don't go to visit. when you're going for coffee, make sure you go to Starbucks when the sun is very bright, and don't make it moonlight. So yeah, you know where I'm coming from. But yeah, I think if there's anything, I love that comment from Kay, about the nagging wife, because that also
Mental
affects your
health,
mental well-being.
100%.
It affects your mental health. When you know that, like I mentioned earlier on, if you have to come back to, there's some people that they don't go back to their houses. Some people, they will tell you they're at work, or they are on site for 1 week. Meanwhile, they're in a hotel somewhere, right? Just because they just want to be away from the house as much as possible. And what you have to make your house conducive, not just for your partners, but even for your
Exactly.
children.
I
I
was
know
just going
some
to say,
kids, when it's Easter break, or they won't come back home because the house is toxic. Either, and more so, and I say this more so, maybe it's a balance. You have some men who bring in, I think it was Amaka that mentioned about the cultural aspect. So you have some men that come in and they say, oh, you have to do this way, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of force, there's a lot of anger in the house, and the kids don't want to come back home, right? So, because, in Nigeria, you used to do it that way, or in Jamaica, you used to do it that way. But hey, things are changing. There has to be that carrot, combining it with stick, and not just stick all the time. So yeah, I think we need to create an environment that is very conducive, and that helps our mental well-being.
yeah. I'm going to skip a lot of questions and I'm going to take the few comments on the chat now. But the last question I'll ask before I take these comments is, if you could change one thing about how society views men today, what would that be, Deji?
Well, I'll change the perception of men being like men being shown as the weaker one, because we've lost, unfortunately, we've lost the purpose and the identity of a real man. And
Mm,
that is something that I will really love to change, because a real man, both strong emotionally, um, vulnerable, and also caring, that perception is crucial, because we've really lost that. In that's one thing I would really love to change.
wow, thank you. Chidi?
Yeah, I think spot on, Deji. You've just taken all the thoughts from my head. But basically, we need to change the idea that men have to be stoic,
Mm,
unbreakable, always in control. We are human. We're absolutely human. We feel, we hurt, we love, we actually need support. So there's a need to normalize vulnerability, if I could say that, which would help so many men, live fuller, healthier lives. And I think this is what we're trying to promote, within O5BM, that look, it's okay to cry, it's okay to hurt, it's okay to have feelings, it's okay that we need support. And that's that support, that space we are providing. And I think, it's not a taboo to speak about mental wellness. It's not a taboo. We need to say that this is not a taboo. Let men speak. And this is where advocacy, we need to go out in social media. We need to start saying, hey, it's okay for men to cry. It's okay, because you know what? We are humans. Thank you.
thanks so much. Deji?
Well, I mean, Chidi has wrapped it up beautifully. I think, the vulnerability, weakness, that, also that a man can fail. It's okay to fail. There's nothing wrong in, failure. I mean, is a sign of you trying. So that also should be there, because it's everything has to be about, being successful. Or if you're not doing well, and changing that and helping men know that, listen, okay, if you're not earning X, Y, and Z, it's fine. At least be a good man, be a godly man, be a loving man is most important. And having that from grassroots, That's changing that perception early is very, very important.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take these few comments. I haven't dropped my email address on the chat again because you Ari, thank you so much. Is it Yo or you? I love that name. It's very different. And it says, can women also join the next show, please? I'm sure our input will be helpful too. 1,000,000%. So I've dropped my email on the chat. Reach out to me and we will make it happen by the grace of God. Okay, darling? And Robin says, great idea, Uwari. Have to be both gender represented for some of these shows. Of course, Robin. Of course. Are you kidding? Of course. And Robin, if you want to join the show also, you know how we do these things. Just let me know and you'll be on the next show too. Olariwaju says, it will be good to know perspective of women on these issues. Honey, okay. We'll have it. Okay, we'll probably have more than one show. The way the things are going, honestly, we'll have more than one show. Okay, and now both men and women talk about it. Okay, and Eddie's vent says, I agree with you. I agree 100%. Get both sides on the way I wanted to speak. Sure. Momsy says, well done, Chidi, Cleopatra, and Deji. Thank you so much. And what else? I put my address. And yes, thank you to everyone. Wow, what can I say? I mean, what a truly eye-opening conversation tonight. A massive thank you to Chidi Umeno and to Deji Babalola for their wisdom, their passion, and honesty. This discussion proves one thing. Men are struggling, but they don't have to struggle alone.
Yep.
Think about it. How many men do you know who silently carry the weight of expectations, self-doubt, and unspoken fears? Society tells them to be strong, to never show weakness, but real strength comes from speaking up, from seeking support, and from just breaking free from outdated norms about, oh, these things don't serve us anymore. Just speak up. So tonight, let's just make a commitment, okay? To everyone, let's make a commitment. Say, no more silence, man. No more silence. No more suffering in the shadows. No more waiting for change. Let's this change start with us. Women supporting the men, but men also reaching out if you need help. And I'll let Chidi give me like just 2 minutes about the 05 BM because that would also help. This is a real good place to talk about 05 BM.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cleopatra, for allowing me to speak about the Over 50s Black Men Forum. The name says it all, but you don't have to wait till you're 50 to join us. If you're 45 plus, come on, knock on the door. Go to 05bmforum.org.uk to sign up as membership. I'll try and see if I can drop it on the chat. But what do? We have 4 key pillars we're trying to address. One of them is health inequality. And it comes up back to this whole thing about ageism. We're trying to deal with this double jeopardy of ageism and the racial aspects, okay? Which is what we're trying to do. So the first one is health inequality amongst older Black men. We are the only organization in the UK, absolutely only organization, black, white, purple, pink, that has a holistic approach on health. What do I mean? We deal with general, physical, and mental. So if you go to prostate cancer will just deal with the physical health. If you go to minds will deal with mental health. We are the only organization that both provide a platform as well as interventions. What do I mean by that? The general health, we have what's called Ask the Doctor series, which happens every 6 weeks online on Zoom. The last one, we started with about 8 men. The last one we did on Valentine's Eve, we had 65 men dial in. The next one is on 17th of April. In terms of physical health, we play table tennis every single week for 2 hours to 2.5 hours in Grays, Chelmsford, Southend, Thamesmead, Kent, Luton, Stevenage, about 7 centers. 4 more centers are coming up in London, Bromley, Enfield, and the 2 more places. We're not sure yet. It's been approved. We've got the funding for it. So that's on the physical health. On the mental health, we have workshops that we organize in these centers where men can come up and talk. We then do seminars every year. We bring in about 100 people with speakers, and every single doctor we bring in is a Black doctor. For the Ask the Doctor series is only male. For the seminars, we bring in male and female doctors and practitioners. So you can find us on Facebook, #O5BM Forum, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, you name it. We're all there. So go there, find us, and join the forum. Tell your father, tell your uncle, tell your brother, tell your partner. Over 50s Black Men Forum. Type it on Google. You will see us there.
Please
Thank you very
drop your
much.
email. Please drop, because Eddie is asking for it. Says, could you please share your website for the men? Please share it. Another question I was going to
Right.
ask you. I know you say it's for Black men. Can some white men who are like Black at heart, can they join? Is it just for Black people? Can white men join as well?
We've been asked this question, and I always tell people, ask yourself, are you Black in all sense of the Blackness? If you are, sign up.
Mm.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for those, for those that want to register, you just go to here. I've put in the link to register. If you want to see more about, some of the fantastic stuff we're doing, so recently we were in a House of Parliament where we're advocating in terms of research and what, for our members. For example, did you know that in London, the air is so polluted and it's in deprived areas that suffer the most? Meanwhile, deprived areas drive less of the cars. So this is the kind of things that we are trying to actually. So I've also put in our email there. So for those of you that want to, email us and ask any form of information, you can see
put
us
your
there
website
as well on the chat. Yeah, so fantastic. So the website, I put that, go to news, you can see anything there. Let me just put the full website there. But yeah, all the information are there. Awesome. So yeah, yes, women have also asked, why can't we have something
Have
for
you
them?
dropped it? I haven't seen it yet, Chidi. No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, apologies. How do I do it? Where do I
just put it on the chat,
Okay.
on the chat itself. Is it on the chat? I can't see it yet.
Okay, hang on a second.
Or you can put it in the private chat, and then I'll just copy and paste it on the main chat. If you,
Okay. Okay. I'll do that if I can figure it out. Let's see.
There's a private chat on your bottom left, where you can drop it, and then I'll just copy and paste it in the main chat. And
okay.
Bottom left, almost next to where
Yeah.
So people, thank you so much. I know a lot of people want to be a part of the next show. We're going to have quite a few shows about all these topics. It's not just going to be one show, because life, there's so many things to talk about life, So, but now, for those of you who have just joined today, please, one of the ways that you can take action to help out is to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might change when you do that. But please also subscribe to the channel. That would encourage us to bring more shows like this. All right. And this channel covers everything you can think of, not just about relationships. Talks about everything from real estate to relationships to medical stuff and health and everything else you can think of. So please subscribe if you haven't done so. I'm trying to build this channel. It's a new channel, and we're doing big things already. So drop a comment. What's your biggest takeaway from tonight's discussion? What stood out to you the most? Drop a comment on the chat. Let me see. And like I said, hit the subscribe button, guys. Turn on your notification. And, this conversation is going to keep going on and on. And before we go, I want to just I want you to remember this, especially for the men. You are seen. We see you, men. We see you. You are valued. You're not alone.
Mm.
Whether you're a man facing these struggles, or somebody who's facing these things, let's just support our men, right? And speak out, man. Your voice matters, and your experiences matter as well. Share your experiences. Somebody will be there to help you go through it without any judgment, like Chidi said earlier on. So let's keep this conversation alive and lift each other up. Most importantly, let's rewrite the narrative on what it means to be a man in today's world. All right. You don't have to keep it all in, right? You don't have to keep it all in. So do we have okay, so I'm gonna copy everything now, and I'll just drop it in the chats for everyone so that you can reach out, right? Let's see. I hope it's all there. Yes, it is. Okay, so I've dropped it in the chat. Once it says we still haven't seen the over 50s link. Now you have it down, darling. Now you have it. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining. Oh my God, it was 1 hour and 40 minutes and counting. So guys, I'm gonna say I love you and leave you, but thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Chidi, for joining. Thank you, Deji, for all your words
Thank
of
you.
wisdom. Guys, remember, be bold, be kind, but most of all, be empowered. I love you. See you next week for a wonderful show.
Deji, we'll talk later.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bless
Thank
you
you so
all.
much.
Fantastic, Cleopatra.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yes.
Take care. Have a blessed week.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Empower life with Cleopatra. Awaken the best version of you. Unlock your true potential. Empower your mind, body, and soul. Live with intentions, live with a purpose. Empower your dreams, make it happen today. No matter your age, rise and shine. Live boldly, live authentically. It's your time to rise and shine. Empower life with Cleopatra. Awaken the best version of you. Your journey starts today. You've got one life to live. Love yourself, be kind to others, break free and let your spirit soar. Empower life with Cleopatra. Will help you